and starting the webinar.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Tony Young. I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations for 1-800-BoardUp, and I want to welcome you today to the International Association of Fire Chiefs webinar, which the topic is going to be building public-private relationships within your community. I want to start off by saying how much we appreciate the opportunity to come on here. I want to send a big shout out to Chief Rob Brown, CEO and Executive Director of the IFC, as well as Chief Jeff Doolin, who Jeff is actually running our webinar for us today. Just wanted to share also the fact that I actually joined the International Association of Fire Chiefs when I made battalion chief back in 1998. I was a member for 10 years. And then in the private world, we've been a sponsor and a 5-bugle partner with the IFC since 2008. So love our relationship with the IFC. It's a great partnership. And we're really excited today to bring on a couple of dynamic chiefs that will share some information, some good information with you guys. Again, my name is Tony Young. I retired as the Deputy Fire Chief and the Public Information Officer for Oklahoma City. Retired in 2008. Started the very next day with 1-800-BoardUp and became our National Director and currently the Senior VP of Operations. I also want to introduce Chief Greg Flynn. Chief Flynn joined the fire service in 1998. He served the West Bloomfield Fire Department as a firefighter, paramedic, EMS division captain, assistant chief, and now is currently the fire chief. Chief Flynn holds a bachelor's degree in public safety studies. He's a graduate of the National Fire Academy Executive Fire Officer Program, and he possesses a master's degree from the Naval Postgraduate School, the Center for Homeland Defense and Security in Monterey, California. Also today, I'd like to introduce Chief Dr. Kane Nixon. Inside joke we've got, right, Chief?
That's right.
Dr. Kane Nixon is the Deputy Chief of Planning, Health, Safety, and Wellness for the Arizona Fire and Medical Authority. He's served in the fire service since 2001. Dr. Nixon is also an adjunct faculty at Northern Arizona University and is the Director of Firefighter Fitness and Conditioning at Glendale Community College. Dr. Nixon holds a doctorate in educational leadership and is dedicated to firefighter safety and health. He chairs the Fire and EMS Scholars Group of Science to the Station, which is the Science Alliance. He's the Arizona State Lead Advocate for the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, Everyone Goes Home program, and is also a district representative for the Firefighter Cancer Support Network. So I want to welcome both you chiefs here today, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. As a matter of fact, Chief Flynn is at the National Fire Academy this week teaching the Executive Fire Officer course. And then we've got Dr. Chief, and we all know he's busy, right, with all that he's got going on. But I just want to take the time to thank both of you guys for being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. And it is good to be joining you from your National Fire Academy here in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Thank you to all of the advocates that worked very hard to get the academy open. And classes are going now, and I would encourage people to continue to look for opportunities to join us here in Emmitsburg. But the conversation, very much looking forward to having it today, this idea of our public and private partnerships. We share so many similarities. The mission of the fire service, which is to serve and protect the property and the lives of community as first responders. And then, often the ideas and the things that happen after we've mitigated the emergency, those are equally important to the overall outcome of those that live in our communities. And those last responders are restoration, our 1-800-BoardUp partners that are there to restore and get those community members back to where they were just before that tragic event happened. So we're going to explore some of that and look at that, and also opportunities where we can leverage that relationship and bring those mutual goals together and find ways really as part of our community risk reduction to reduce the presence of fire and mitigate disasters within our community. And I think that's where this very much evolving, been there for a while for some communities that have been early adopters of CRR, but for others, they're looking to navigate and explore how they can enter that community risk reduction area within their communities. And it may be a partner that you find with your colleagues in your restoration and BoardUp company like 1-800-BOARD-UP that's going to be there to help springboard you into a way to accomplish those goals of community risk reduction. Now, when we look to the alignment of the mission of the fire service, there to take care of others and put others first, it really does align well with the restoration company. These are shared values. And I think when you find, and I know that Chief Kane or Chief Nixon feels the same way when we talk about the alignment and the synergy that can come from when we have shared values with our partners, and that really does help us to embody the service to others. We look to in the fire service, we're controlling risk to life safety and the fire and the loss of property, and these are all things that are very much right in alignment with a restoration company, preserving property, restoring it back to where it was, and it's that readiness to be there in a timely fashion and recover. And so readiness, response, and recovery actions that we train on every single day. This is that private partnership where we find, again, the similarities of that shared mission across the needs, and all of it with that overarching approach to meet the needs of the citizens and those that are visiting our community. And that's really where the conversation is going to take us as we move through the webinar here today.
Yeah, so guys, I'd like to just share a little bit about 1-800-BOARD-UP for those who aren't aware of our services. Our mission is to assist organizations who share our commitment to helping victims of disaster. Our true success is measured by our ability to effectively serve those in need through our unwavering commitment to our core principles and values. And I'll just tell you guys that one of our big commitments is to the fire service, right? Being able to get you guys back in service quicker. Not to mention the fact that we have 141 retired fire officers that can be on your scene for the next 2 to 3 hours, which kind of takes away, for the most part, that nasty thing called a rekindle, right?
Yeah, Tony, talk about impact. That's a huge impact to us in public safety and to our folks on the streets. But when we look at overarching impact to the communities and what the fire service does in response, this next slide that we're looking at here, this is some empirical data from a study that was done. And shocker, the Dr. Chief guy likes data and research. But what we're looking at here is a study that was done by the Seidman Research Institute with actually the city of Phoenix. It's in my region here in Arizona. This was done a little more than 10 years ago. But it describes the impact that we have on the community as a fire department. And what this group did is they looked at, in 1 year, 42 commercial fires that took place and the intervention that the fire department had on those fires by stopping the growth. And it actually protected 7,446 government jobs that would have been lost had these fires not been stopped. And then these companies, we talk about the financial impact as well to the companies themselves with $600 million in gross product impact, the $295 million in the disposable income that would have been lost to the citizens, and the $35 million in taxes that would have been lost to the state. And when we look at that and we see the compelling evidence of the profound economic impact that what we do has to the community, if you were to stretch that out across today's value, we're talking over $1 billion in impact. And that's just from 42 commercial fires.
Absolutely.
So when we look at community risk reduction, what is that? What does that mean? And here we've got a definition from the NFPA. They define it as programs, actions, and services used by a community which prevent or mitigate the loss of life, property, and resources associated with life safety, fire, and other disasters within the community. When we evaluate community risk reduction, We're doing it as kind of a holistic approach. We're looking at every opportunity to impact the community, whether that's fire risk, any other life safeties, medical, fall injuries, things of that nature, as well as natural disasters that could impact our community. So it's that shift that, you know, in the fire service that we struggle with. We're not always the best at being proactive. We are reactionary, you know, by our design. But you know, as we transition over to this proactive approach, you don't know what you don't know until you start asking good questions. So what that requires, in my experience, has been that a really strong 360 risk assessment, looking at all of your data as it's coming in. We'll talk about those steps to a good CRR program, but actually understanding what's required from you for your community. There's different platforms. You know, the IAFC in April, they just hosted a phenomenal community risk reduction leadership symposium here in Arizona in Glendale. It was very well attended, and professionals from all over the country came here to look at how they can impact their communities in a more progressive and proactive way through these risk assessments. Another platform that I think a lot of fire departments are looking at. We're an internationally accredited agency. We're very proud of that. But how you obtain that is through a deep dive into your data, your all of the risks that are associated with your community and how you can intervene. But that's not it. Not just knowing those risks and those service gaps, but then identifying champions within your agency to go out and then build out programs and implement those programs into the community.
I just want to jump in there, Chief Nixon. It's,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's important for us to recognize that the information that our firefighters are putting into those reports, and really the quality of the information going into the fire records management system, detailed information, origins, you know, how things presented, you know, the investigative side of it, so that we can kind of work backwards like an autopsy of that and try to discover how we can prevent those things. And I love the idea that you were talking about, how they bring these collaborative events together, because there's things that people are doing that were innovative, and you're like, I would have never thought of that. I would have, you know, we have a whole, the IFC and others have these community risk reduction conferences that we're going to, because there's these wonderful ideas that are being generated across the country. But I don't know that Greg Flynn would have thought of that, or our team would have thought of that. But that collaboration, a sharing of ideas, and understanding how to interpret the information, you know, data analysts, that can be a tough job. You can't go into it saying, I know the answer. You've really got to go into it with an open mind and saying, what is this telling us about our community? Where's our risk for fire? Where's our risk for fall and injury? And what steps can we take to try to reduce that risk within our community?
Absolutely. Totally agree. So as we're talking about community partnerships for this risk reduction, there's a process, right? So I believe the next slide we get into the those steps for that process.
There we go. My computer locked up for a second. Go ahead.
No worries. And I'll touch on this again. The data collection is critical, as Chief Flynn was talking about. The amount of information that we can obtain is critical, but actually having good data in gives us better answers on the backside. Not very many fire departments have the resources to have a data analyst on staff. So effective training on those reports, what the expectation is for for the data coming in. And what we've experienced is the fewer clicks, the better, right? So if we can identify building out those systems, how to get to the data that we need, but not exhausting our folks that are entering that data, that's critical. Prioritizing risks, you know, that comes with good data. We'll be able to identify where we can have the greatest impact on life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation. Those are our goals. Developing the strategies and tactics to mitigate these risks. This is where the fire department spends a lot of time. And I think this is where you really want to engage your private sector partners like 1-800-BOARDUP, other entities within your community. Those stakeholders will be able to give you a lot of answers to the questions you might have. If it has to do with how soon can we get resources here, they can get those answers to you. They can be those resources or connections to those resources.
You know, and this is one of those areas where if you're partnering with your local hospital on our fall and injury prevention, this is where you may engage your, you know, a 1-800-BOARDUP for some construction intervention, for a ramp or some of the things. I know that's one of the things Tony's going to likely highlight later on is some of the additional work that's not directly related to an emergent need, but where that community partner engages in kind of a lower acuity situation, but we're preventing that catastrophe later on down the road with maybe a life-ending injury. And I think that's important when, as you're talking about this, Chief, about the partnership, and I'm sure we'll explore this theme throughout, but those types of interactions with your community partners is building that relationship, and it's building that trust. And I think that's something we have to keep bringing up throughout this is the trust within the community and the engagement for the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the, you know, we're experts in certain things, but putting homes back together, we're not that. Getting sometimes just mitigation services to the house, you know, we are not those experts. We're relying on the private sector to engage. And one thing that's great about 1-800-BOARDUP is their response to the scene that's very quick, so that we can get back to back in service and back to the community for preparedness. So step 4 here, we talked about preparing that plan, and that's where that internal, external stakeholder input is good, but I like bringing them in earlier in that development of those strategies because they'll help answer a lot of those questions. Then implementing the plan, right, and getting it out into the field, getting your folks trained on what those expectations are on both sides, right? Not just our firefighters and company officers, and command officers, but also that integration of those those private sector entities. So are there opportunities to engage together, maybe at your training center, maybe at one of the properties that had a disaster or, you know, a substantial fire? Can we bring crews back? Can we talk with what worked, what didn't work, and then use the private sector entities to help us understand what would be better for them, for the homeowner. Then the most important thing is the follow-up. Just like the planning P, we come back around, we're monitoring, we're evaluating, and we're modifying as needed to continue to make sure that our citizens are getting the best services possible.
Yeah. Hey, for both the chiefs here, I know that you guys in your communities and even surrounding communities already utilize the 1-800-BOARDUP program, but for those chiefs out there that have not, either haven't heard of us or have not utilized our services, I just want to make sure that they understand that, you know, we get so caught up in the fire side of it, right? Fires. BoardUp is kind of usually after a fire, but our companies do so much more than that. So we can actually be called on fires, floods, storm damage, vehicles into buildings. We'll show some pictures of these later. Biohazard cleanup, mold remediation, right? What we always say is if you don't know who to call us. And Chief Dr. Kane, one of our Phoenix office, sharing with us at our national conference this year, actually said that they had a fire chief after a big commercial fire needed a crane. And so they actually called our local office and said, I know this is going to sound crazy, but we need a crane. He goes, I'll have your crane within 2 hours. And so we got him a crane out there, right, to do the investigative part of it and the collapse part. But yeah, so I just want everybody to know, like I said, if you don't currently know who your 1-800 Board Up director is, or if you're not 100% sure on what you can call us on, we would love to hear from you guys and be able to get you hooked up with your local director and fully educated. So.
Tony, I think that there's sometimes there may be, and this is what's great about these webinars is having some of this kind of open dialogue is, I think there's sometimes apprehension about that relationship looking too strong. And I guess I would just want to comment on that's the type of relationship that you need in crisis. Discovering a new relationship in the time of crisis is often difficult to navigate to a shared outcome. But when I'm shoulder to shoulder with somebody at a like we'll talk about the lunch and learns or at a community event, and 1-800 Board Up is there, and you're keeping that conversation going and that engagement, that's where that crane can show up so quickly, because you do pick up the phone, even when you know it's not an emergency, because it's all about the community. And I really think that's highlighted. I was at a recent event with our local group, and we learned about one of the carpenters and his response and his helping out as the hero side of it. Right, it had flipped. He was the first responder at an incident and rendered care to somebody, and then we showed up. And so again, it just shows the type of people that work in the fire service. Another similarity is the type of people that work within your company and their sense of community and giving and taking on some risk to help others.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tony, an example that we had here in our community a few years ago, we had a fire in a structure. 1-800 Board Up showed up. They secured the property, and then days later, we were actually in communication with one of our local representatives from 1-800 Board Up, and he was allowing our crews to come back through the property and evaluate our tactics, how well we did with intervening on the fire. And it was a retired fire officer from our area. So we had that relationship, but we actually turned it into a pretty robust training session, after action review. But, those opportunities don't always exist, but it was because we had that relationship that we were able to engage those crews.
And let me add this, most of our offices, not all of them, but the large majority of our offices actually have cameras that'll do a 360 scan of the inside of a structure, commercial or residential. And we actually use that on the restoration side, working with the insurance companies. But if any of our fire officers want to do, kind of review the tactics and whatnot, we can actually bring those cameras, set them up, and show them exactly what it looked like at the fire station, at the training center, wherever it might be. So we're definitely willing to help in that way too.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah.
And I think that leads very nicely into the idea of bringing the continuity of keeping businesses open, getting them back open quickly, which is definitely a benefit for the public as well. And that is that support for building resiliency, right? That we stretch a rubber band, we stretch it. The resiliency is that ability to get it back without it breaking. And that's a very important part of what that restoration company brings to the table with that partnership. That infrastructure, again, bringing awareness to the community, that where we see you partnering. One of the things that I find as a fire chief, as we're recruiting quite frankly, a fairly young workforce coming in that hasn't had maybe the time in a paid on call or volunteer organization and then moves into a career department. They're coming in fresh out of school. So some of these things like that your carpenter team is doing, Tony, and that just some simple building structure type engagement. These are kind of awareness programs that we look forward to partnering with our 1-800 group to come in and kind of go over those things with some of your talented folks. And that can help us out, like you said, with the cameras that you have available to do some of these risk assessments, and that partnership with those company officers that have retired and chief officers that are now kind of part of that engagement. They know the area and they know where resources are. and our mutual aid partners. And that really does bring a well-coordinated logistical support system along with that. And it's partnership after partnership after partnership. And it's probably a word that maybe we're hearing a lot of in the webinar thus far, but I can't stress it enough that when you need it, that is the thing. So many of us have situations where the community can become overwhelmed. And it's not directly, I'm not trying to take this into a staffing discussion, but all of us can be overwhelmed. And that's why it's so smart as a chief officer to be prepared for those overwhelming days and knowing that you have trusted partners that can come in and take some of that load off while you're tending to the very specialized part of what we do in emergency services. And you're right alongside with emergency restoration. So I think that's another one of those similarities that's coming through with this idea of establishing that private-public partnership.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add that some of the things that we offer at 1-800-BOARDUP, right, as far as assisting and creating alliances and things, we're always open to doing lunch and learns. We're always open, even to your point, Chief Flynn, if you have the needs for a training situation where you need a roof prop or door props, things like that. Again, we've got carpenters on staff that come out and work with our directors to help our local agencies with that as well. One thing that I'm not sure if everybody's aware of or not, but we do work very closely with organizations such as the Red Cross and Salvation Army, especially if they don't have insurance, right? We will still come in, provide that victim assistance for them. We'll go ahead and get the home secured for them. And then we also get in touch with Red Cross or Salvation Army to help them as well. So,
Tony, on this point, I think Chief Flynn said, a lot of the times we can be overwhelmed. He was talking about the volume that we are managing on a regular basis. And I fully understand that. But how I see these relationships, I see them as an investment in our community. Not only are you supporting local businesses, but you're really identifying the pathway to community resilience in the shortest period of time. And I get it. A lot of chiefs are very busy, but I challenge our folks to get out, get with your Chamber of Commerce, get with your local community groups, call your 1-800-BOARDUP local director and establish those relationships. I love the idea of the lunch and learn. That's such a good opportunity to get side by side with the people who are willing to help you in your fire department because they care about your community. We really have to take the time to engage with those folks as well. We can't just wait for these folks to come to us. We're leaders in the community and we need to be out there. So,
yeah.
Tony, was that a hard stretch? Was that a hard stretch to think that, hey, I can get chiefs engaged if I feed them? Was there much conversation about the difficulty of that being a success?
Yeah. In 2008, the first 2 calls I had, hey, we'll get all the stations here. If you're bringing the food, we'll listen, right?
Right to the bellies. Absolutely. I love it.
And we're going to show some examples of some different partnerships in these next couple of slides that we've had even here in the Oklahoma City market. So one of the things is obviously scheduling the meetings, right? Let them know how we're going to be able to assist them. So this comes from both sides. If the first responders, if they want to know more, then they can contact us. But one way or another, we've got to all get on the same page and be able to educate you on exactly what we can do for you and your citizens. And I think that, and I'm not sure, we didn't talk about this, chiefs, but I don't know how many chiefs actually understand after a significant incident, again, a storm, a fire, a vehicle into your home, and you call that 1-800 number on your insurance card, guess how long it is before somebody actually shows up there to help your citizens, right? We've mitigated the initial emergency response, and then we've got to get back in service. But from the time they call that insurance company, it can be days. If anybody on this call has ever called the insurance company, right, they're understaffed, right? They're overwhelmed. And so me personally, I had a roof claim a couple of years ago, and it was 10 days before somebody showed up at my house. and I'm talking about an insurance adjuster, but we can be there. We can help your folks get everything dried in. We can put them with our victim assistance program. You know, we can help put them up. But it all starts with scheduling these meetings, right? We've all got to make sure that we're on the same page. You guys know what we can do. We know how we can help you, things like that. And if you guys want to talk a little bit more about your community risk reduction efforts, please do so.
Yeah, I think, Tony, one thing I want to highlight is that's really special about your company, but is the fact that it doesn't matter who's requesting the assistance, 1-800-BOARD-UP is going to be there. And it's not necessarily an insurance question. 1-800-BOARD-UP will respond and will take care of our citizens regardless of whether or not they have insurance or who the provider is. That's in line with our mission. We respond, we take care of our citizens because that's our duty. And I appreciate that from you guys and what you guys do. So setting up those meetings, I was just talking about that. I think that's important to establish those relationships, not just with 1-800-BOARD-UP, but with, your whole community. You don't know what resources might be available to you unless you're out there and engaging with the community.
Yep,
But Chief, as we know that you're one incident away from falling out of favor with the community. And I hold our vendors and our partners in our community to the same standard. And I'll share that with our directors that we always we heap the praise on, but it's work to be good at what you do. And when I look at our team practicing and engaging, I look for partners that do the same thing. And when I have somebody like in the medical field, if you've had to have a cardiac bypass or a stent put in or something, people ask, hey, who did you use? Did it go really well and you really liked the doctor? And you say yes, like that's the best referral. And so I think it's the same way with your restoration company. When you see positive results that are having the positive outcome in your community and getting people back to normal, that's the A team that you want to call on to come in and help out. Just like the fire department's the A team in that community, you want to bring A team partners in to help those citizens. So I get that it can be delicate for communities that maybe have multiple providers. And I think every chief officer has some background in how to navigate that. But I would encourage chiefs not to shy away from picking best in breed in everything that we do, whether that's apparatus, billing companies on our EMS side, whatever it may be. But there's accountability with that, Tony. And I guess I would just be curious how you feel hearing that as part of the leadership team at 1-800-BOARD-UP, if that's something that resonates.
Absolutely. Accountability is critical in what we do. Like like you said, you're only one call away from being out of favor, right? And so one of the things when we built this organization started in 2002, but when I started in 2008, we really kind of revamped it. One of the reasons that we bring fire officers on is because we want to mirror the fire service, right? So not only do we want to look the most professional, not only do we want to act the most professional, right? We want to be the most professional on every scene that we go to. So again, all of our teams, they wear the safety gear. Again, we want to look like you on the scenes, right? We want our vehicles to mirror yours as far as how the cleanliness and all the equipment that we need. And so, we've been at this since I've been here for 16 and a half years, and we really are critical of our own people, right? We make sure that everybody toes the line and does the professional things the professional way. And as long as you do that, right, we're all good. Everybody's good. Everybody's happy. And that's our goal. So.
Yeah, that's excellent. I love that we have standards and that we're in alignment with that. Here's some examples, not just the relationships with companies like 1-800-BOARD-UP, but these are other examples that we put together just for some discussion on potential opportunities for public-private partnerships. Here in Arizona, I'll touch on a few of them. We had a helicopter that's actually in the process of coming back to our communities. It was called the Halo helicopter. It was the city of Glendale initiated this program. And essentially it was with a medical flight company, but it was a partnership with the Glendale Fire Department initially that expanded across, I believe, 4 or 5 other departments over time. But what this flight company was able to do was put firefighter paramedics in the helicopter in the back. So they were the care providers. And then what we were able to do is integrate that helicopter into our dispatch system so that on certain nature codes, it would auto launch. And what this did for our folks was it gave our firefighters, I mean, unbelievable experience. And those firefighters would then come work on the fire trucks or engines as well, you know, on a rotating schedule. So we had some really, really excellent care providers in the streets. This was a relationship. There was not cost sharing, but there was cost coverage. So the flight company was able to offset the expense for our staff hour. But beyond that, the impact to the community with the ability to auto launch, the ability for these firefighters to get on scene faster, be off of the ground faster, and getting our patients to the hospital was phenomenal. So those opportunities exist, and I encourage chief officers to look, you know, think outside of the box and look out at what the service gaps are in your community. We also work pretty closely here in Arizona with one of our regional utility companies. You know, Arizona is the hub for solar, I believe now, and we have a lot of battery energy storage systems coming into Arizona in our jurisdictions especially, and our local utility companies have been excellent, not just in disaster planning for outages or lines down, but these battery energy fires that sometimes do occur. We've got excellent training programs, and it's a real partnership to make sure that not only are our folks safe when responding to these emergencies, but on the front end, the fuel mitigation so that there aren't fires, the training for our folks to understand the technology, but all in all, for grid stability for our communities to have the power they need. And then something else is smoke alarm walks. It might seem like a small impact, but it has a substantial impact on the families that may not have smoke alarms in their homes. We've seen across multiple communities here in Arizona where local hardware stores or home improvement companies, they'll donate, you know, hundreds or even 1,000 smoke alarms, and the fire department can get involved, maybe even offset and match some of those smoke alarm donations. But then you're out in the community knocking on doors, making sure that the people who may have vulnerable populations in your area, that they have the smoke alarms that they need.
Yep. So I said I was going to speak a little bit about the Oklahoma City bombing. So I was a brand new captain in 1995 when the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building was bombed. And I was down there within about 20 minutes on the scene. But I can remember by 5, 6 o'clock that evening, we had some large equipment. And I'm talking about some equipment that I had never seen before in the city, right? And come to find out that was companies like Allied Steel and Midwest Wrecking. And if memory serves me right, our emergency manager had a list of private contractors already prepared for pre-loss, you know, had some pre-loss agreements. And so they were able to just pick up the phone and say, hey, this is what we need, right? And they actually delivered it to us and had workers there working side by side with us. I'm very good friends with former fire chief at Midwest City, Oklahoma, where Tinker Air Force Base is at. He was also the emergency manager. They had a big tornado come through there, and they did a lot of work with a private contractor as well, coming in and doing debris cleanup. Now, he said they actually could have done it, but it would have taken about 3 to 4 times as long to get it done at the city level. And, you know, as far as getting these neighborhoods back up and running, they opted to go ahead and pay a private contractor. And then, of course, hazmat cleanup companies. I mean, we can go on and on. Wrecker services, ambulance services, right? Oklahoma City has had a private ambulance service for the better part of 45 years or so, 40 years, I think. And so, you know, there's a lot of different private contractors out there that we do partner with. And we just want to make sure that everybody's aware that that we can still work together, and we can make it work very well. So some of the things about 1-800-BOARD-UP, and you can, Chiefs, y'all jump in here if any of this comes to mind. With usually you're already gone from the scene, but some of the things once we get to the scene, obviously the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check in with the incident commander, not interrupting them because again we're all former fire officers. But when the scene's kind of starting to wrap up, we'll check in with that incident commander. We'll make sure that the firefighters are all taken care of. Do they need any hydration? Do they need any protein bars? Things like that. We also ask them if they lost any equipment, right? Because even if they've lost equipment, they've been looking for a while and they still haven't found it, we're going to be there for the next 2 to 3 hours. We definitely will continue to look for that. And then we also ask them about any safety hazards. So we want to know, what's going on with the structure, what do we need to be careful of, and things like that. And then we get introduced to the property owners, and our first goal is taking care of the victims. So what is it that their immediate needs, right? Do they have a place to stay? Do they not have a place to stay? We do like to go in and help them get approximately a week's worth of clothing, and we can usually get that turned around in 24 hours, professionally cleaned. And then, of course, think about this in case you've never had your own fire, but there's always something going through those property owners' mind that's inside that house that they've got to have, right? Whether it's medications or whether it's heirlooms, right? Your great grandfather's gun or coin collection or jewels, whatever the case may be, right? We want to make sure that we help them take care of that. We do provide a victim assistance kit, which is a bag that has all the toiletry items for a male, a female. We have them for children as well. We also normally put some peanut butter crackers, some granola bars, water. And then think about this. They don't have a flashlight, right? Most people have their phone, so that has a flashlight. But we always give them a flashlight. We do give them gloves. We put some booties on their feet. Once we've made sure that the scene is clear, only then we'll put them in the proper safety gear, and we will go in and help them retrieve the items that they need. We do have 24-hour pharmacies that we can go and help these folks get their pharmacies refilled. Temporary housing, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we have not only hotels that we've already partnered with, but we also have a temporary housing directory that will normally come in within 24 hours and put these folks in a like-size house in a like-size neighborhood, which is always good. And then how can we not mention the pets, right? Because sometimes, and especially out in Arizona where you have a lot of retirees, those pets are more important than their children at times, right? And so all of our directors carry the collapsible pet crates, dog and water food, cat food, the collapsible feeding trays and things like that. So we try and take care of anything that we can think of that's needed after a fire. We also have clergy. If there's been somebody that's been injured or has perished in the fire, right? We have different types of clergy that we can get out on the scene as well. So just want to make sure everybody's aware. So talking about that temporary housing, just in the first quarter of this year, we've provided through the housing authority that we partner with 2,313 rooms for fire or disaster victims, right? All through our directors of emergency services. I've already talked about the fact that we employ 141 former fire officers. That's in the US and Canada. One of the things that we're the most proud of is the charitable giving that we do. Each one of our offices normally does a minimum of 2 charity events each year. And so we like to partner with our first responders. And last year alone, we assisted our first responders with raising $4.2 million for their charities. And this year, in case you haven't already heard about it, on July 23rd, we're actually going to do a one-day, it's called the Day of Giving, 1-800-BOARD-UP Day of Giving. And we're working with our local partners, our local emergency responders to identify a charity event to have. We're going to, here in Oklahoma City, we're going to do a Topgolf event. 50% of the proceeds will stay right there local for your charities. And then 50% comes to our 3 charities, which are the Firefighter Cancer Support Network, the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, and then our newest partner is Project Fire Buddies, which really takes care of young children who have critical medical needs, but we try and give them a party or whatever it is that they would like to have. So again, we love everything that we do at 1-800-BOARD-UP. All of our directors are so passionate about what we do. And again, these are just some of the pictures of some of the events that we've done. As you can see over here on the upper right-hand corner, that was at the that was 2 years ago in Kansas City. And we actually did a one-night Topgolf type of event. We raised $6,000 for the International Association of Fire Chiefs Foundation. Also, our CEO, Sheldon Yellen, was the keynote speaker at the IFC-FRI event. And I don't know if you, Kane, if you or Chief Flynn were there for that, but that went over very well. Very passionate. Our whole company is very passionate about what we do. And again, some more pictures from booths that we work. There's another check for, looks like $15,000 for the Firefighter Cancer Support Network that we helped raise. Again, we love what we do. We talked a little bit about the Lunch and Learn earlier. This bottom picture, we actually were supporting some local firefighters on a training event. And during the lunch, we provided the lunch, and then we actually educated them a little bit on what we do and why we do it and how we do it, right? So.
Tony, real quick, if I could.
Hmm?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to jump in. And here in Arizona, our one of our 1-800 BoardUp offices, they, on an annual basis, they support one of the biggest charitable events that we have in the Phoenix region. It's the Gary Peccary fishing tournament, and it's a 3-day camping and fishing event, and all of the funds go to supporting the Peccary Cancer Fund. Gary was a Phoenix firefighter that died of cancer that was job related, and in his memory, this has now become one of the larger charity events in our state. And 1-800 BoardUp is a major supporter, and so thank you, to our local office, but also to just the national offices. To that commitment to community is critical. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to underscore that. I think Chief Nixon and I were both kind of eager to jump in with the good work that is outside of restoring properties, but is influential in restoring lives and the quality of lives that aren't always directly related to a disaster or a fire. Some of this may be reflected in there, Tony, but it seems like anytime locally in Southeast Michigan, if there is an issue of importance to the community, if there is a time of need within the community, 1-800 BoardUp is there. Whether it's there with support for just people lifting heavy objects and putting things, back in place, or something to help with a charity event like during the holidays, or there is the generosity of even the directors contributing, maybe even their own dollars to some of these events. It is comforting to know that there's a constant presence, that when we're there, we see our partners in restoration right alongside. So I don't know that we can always quantify what that means, and that goes throughout with all of our partners. And I think you would even yield that partners in other areas of public service. I think that's just so important, and I think 1-800 BoardUp is right there at the top of that list.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I didn't really need to comment on those other pictures, but this is a perfect example of that risk reduction, right? This is a commercial business that a vehicle drove right through the front doors. And as you can see, our goal is always to be on scene within an hour, right? Traffic conditions and weather permitting. But as you can see, not only did they came in and framed that in and got these people, you can see how clean they made a door that actually opens and has a lock on it. But they got these people's business back open and running within 3 hours, right? And so instead of being down for weeks or months, they were able to come in and get that turned around in a timely manner, and it's professionally done, right?
What we want to see.
Yeah, I think this is one of our fleets out there in the Phoenix metro area. But like I said, we do residential properties, we do commercial properties. I know we have some pictures that we didn't share this time of downtown Chicago when a big windstorm and the high wind shear took out a bunch of windows in a high rise, and our local office there went up and actually completely dried in that high rise. So so anyway, just kind of going back to the summary, and you guys jump in here if you have anything else to add, but our goal is always to align with the first responders, the agencies, and then the private partners. So if you haven't met some of your private partners that you feel like could be of a benefit, I mean, why would we not? Right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think partnerships like this, they really allow us in the fire service to move past or beyond our resource limitations. Hearing everything that 1-800 BoardUp does for their customers after we leave, that speaks to the mission of taking care of the community, and that's our mission. We're able to converge on these missions and work together, but all in the name of public safety and community resilience, and that's the message here. How we get to that, I think, is identifying those service gaps through that CRR evaluation. I think that's the biggest investment that we can really make in our fire departments is through that division. We are a response agency, but we can reduce those responses by investing in that risk reduction process.
Right on. And we need to recognize that we can't do it all alone, on the FD side. And Chief, I think that's just what you're underscoring there too, is the importance of recognizing that. And I even the conversations here at the NFA over the last week, where I'm hearing chief officers sound like, well, I have to do this and I have to do that. And they're trying to do it all themselves. And you have willing partners in your community that want to step in and assist so that the FD can focus maybe a little bit more narrowly on the emergent situations. And once those mitigated situations, hand them off to a partner, like a 1-800 BoardUp that is able to take the football from there and then put it into the end zone and get that citizen or that business structure back into its pre-incident state. And that is about reducing risk in the community too. The more timely these things are done, when Tony talks about this being up and running and people getting their prescription filled at that Walgreens, that's important. And keeping commerce and resiliency and continuity of business open, I think that just really emphasizes the possibilities and the advantage of this private-public partnership in all cases. Even Chief, the things you were talking about with the helicopter and other partnerships that are beyond just your restoration company, that the philosophy, the practices, the principles of this extend beyond this, but what a great way to practice with such a willing partner in your community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the challenge to everyone watching this webinar is, are you looking at those potential service gaps, and where can you establish those partnerships within your community?
Yeah. I want to, obviously the goal is to maintain the mission, right? I just don't think that it takes that many meetings, right? I think if you assigned a battalion chief or an assistant chief, maybe even a young lieutenant that has a lot of energy, right? Assign them to go out and see what we can find to bridge some of these gaps. Because like you said, even in the incident command world, the incident commander doesn't do it all, right? We make assignments. There's no reason we couldn't assign somebody to go out and find our best partners in this field as well. So
absolutely.
I did want to share just real quick. So obviously, again, thank you so much. We're truly blessed by our partnership with the International Association of Fire Chiefs. Again, we've been a booth partner with them since 2008 and a 5-bugle partner since 2010. But I want everybody to be aware that August 13th through the 15th, we are going to Mickey Mouse's World, right? Orlando, Florida, for the IFC FRI conference. And our booth number will be booth number 1843. Would love for anybody to stop by and see us, grab some goodies, right? We usually have some pretty good swag. And then also a couple of events that we are sponsoring that as part of our 5-bugle partnership. The executive chief officer classes, we're actually sponsoring 2 of those. And then we're also going to sponsor the Friday morning feature focus breakfast. And we have some really good dynamic speakers that are going to be there speaking at that. So we're really excited about both of those. And then something that we've been putting on for about the past 4 years is a Chief Summit Educational Symposium. And I want to highlight down here at the bottom, this is for chief officers and anyone who aspires to be, right? You don't have to be a chief, to come to this. You can be a lieutenant or a captain, or whatever the case may be. But it's going to be January the 12th through the 14th in Islamorada, Florida. It is a 5-star resort called Chica Lodge and Spa. Chief Nixon has actually been our MC and spoke and taught at that class before, as well as Chief Flynn. And I think they're both coming back this year, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a great event. So if you need more information on this, you can send us an email or get with your local director, or down here at the bottom, you can see you can just actually type in chiefsummit.com and it will take you to our registration site. These are some of the speakers that will be speaking this year. I've got to move that. So Dr. Candace Ashby, who's a battalion chief out of Indianapolis, is talking about leadership from the bottom up. Alvin Benson, the fire chief in Memphis, after the fire and healing from the loss. Delbert Blakeney, he's director of emergency services from Canada, revitalizing fire service SOPs. And this kind of goes right along with what we're talking about, right? Community risk plans and vision. Dr. Celesta Harris out of Austin, Texas, is fostering first responder mental health. And I think both of you chiefs know right now that mental health is right at the forefront of everything that we do. I know I'm on the board of 2 different first responder mental health boards, and I'm telling you, some of the things that we're going through right now with our first responders is really scary, and we need to make sure we stay at the forefront of how to take care of them. Robert Hoff was the retired fire chief from Chicago, Illinois, teaching leading in the face of line of duty deaths. And then Dr. Nixon here, fill your gas tanks, fueling wellness in the eye care model. Jim Petrick out of Ontario, Canada, cancer in the line of duty. And then Tim Walsh out of Chicago, again, line of duty deaths, talking about the investigation, the impact, and the lessons learned. So we got some really dynamic speakers. We actually did a search. We don't just go out and say, hey, this is who we're going to take, right? We have all of our directors give us input. We have a panel that actually votes on the different topics as well as the speakers. And so it's quite a lengthy process, but we're really excited to have all these people speaking at our conference this year. And if it looks like Islamorada, Florida in January might not be so much fun, well, there's a great picture. That was at lunch one day. That's just the chief side, and we have a whole nother side for our 1-800 board up folks, but just a great event. Would you guys agree? Did you guys have a great time there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Nothing like getting out of Detroit, Michigan in the middle of January, right?
For work, Tony.
Absolutely, we're working. Hey, my wife's with me and I don't see her for 3 days because yes, we are working. All right. So chiefs, I want to give you guys an opportunity to give some closing remarks before we shut this webinar down.
Chief
Go ahead,
Nixon,
Chief
you wanna
Flynn.
go?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you. It really has been a pleasure joining the webinar with Chief Nixon and with you, Tony, and really discussing the opportunities that our communities can have with our partners and the importance of those chief officers forging those partners and maintaining the partnership so that in the time of crisis, it's literally automatic. Often I find my phone is ringing with my colleagues at 1-800 board up before I can even get to the phone to call them, or I'm receiving a text message because their intel is spilling to them so quickly that they're ready and saying we're ready and willing to serve. So that's what it's all about. I would encourage those that have those relationships to teach others and to partner, again, not just with your restoration company, but across your community to really bring some real synergy to resilience and continuity within your communities.
Thank you, Chief.
Hard to follow. Chief Flynn, I couldn't have said it any better.
Period.
Yeah, just excellent. I want to say thank you to 1-800 board up and Chief Young, the IAFC for putting this on. I think the more that we can highlight some of our successes and wins, and then also share some of those strategies on how to bring these missions together from private sector entities like 1-800 board up, and our focus is the community, both in recovery and resilience, but you definitely make our response easier. So thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. again, thanks to the IFC, Chief Brown and Jeff, thank you so much for hosting this as well. I do want to say that, you know, one of the reasons that we hire fire officers, again, is because exactly what you two chiefs said. When they call the 1-800-BOARD-UP number, we don't ask if they have insurance. We don't ask if they live in a nice house. We don't ask, you know, why they're calling us. We respond just like you guys. That's why we hire firefighters, right? We know that our heart's in the right place. We know that we've done this for a long time, and we want to be there for our citizens, as well as our partners in the fire service. So if there's anything that we can do for you guys, please give us a call. If you don't know who your local director is, you can Google it, or you can call 1-800-BOARD-UP and ask to talk to Tony Young. I will talk to you, I promise you. And we do have some offices around the country and in Canada where we're looking for retired fire officers. So again, if you're interested in coming to work in a great part-time job, give us a shout out for that too. But my last thing I'd like to say is we are actually sponsoring another webinar with the IFC, probably going to be the last week of July. And so if anybody watching this webinar or any of the panel, the chiefs, have some good content that you would like to share or that you would like to get across on the IFC webinar, feel free to give us a call. We would love to hear from you, and we'd love to look at partnering with you guys on a webinar in July. So again, thank you, Jeff. Chiefs, thank you guys so much. And I want all the firefighters and the fire chiefs out there, God bless you guys. Be safe, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.